Good morning. We are so glad that you are here. We'd like to call this hearing to order. Today we are the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom. I'm Vicki Hartzler. We're delighted to welcome you to this morning's hearing. And also, we're grateful for Senator Budd for reserving this room for us today so we can have this very, very important hearing. So thank you, Senator Budd. The U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom, or USCIRF, is an independent, bipartisan U.S. legislative branch agency created by the 1998 International Religious Freedom Act, or IRFA. The Commission uses international standards to monitor religious freedom abroad. Today, USCIRF exercises its statutory authority under IRFA to convene this hearing. There are many accounts of Christian persecution that have remained with me over the years. Many of us have seen horrific footage and gruesome images from around the world that has terrorized Christians. One story that particularly haunts our collective conscience is that of Christian Nigerian girl Leah Sherebu. When she was only 14 years old, terrorists kidnapped her and over 100 girls from their school in an attempt to force her to convert to Islam. Because Leah refused to renounce her faith, she was not released. Now she has suffered 8 long years of captivity, facing unimaginable exploitation and the denial of her religious freedom. She is not alone. Persecutors around the world deny religious freedom to an untold number of Christians. The stories you will hear today are not offered simply to inform, but to call us to a sense of urgency about the persecution of Christians. It is imperative that we confront this heart-wrenching reality. As we speak, innocent men, women, and children are losing their homes, their livelihoods, and even their lives simply for being Christians. This hearing also highlights the extent to which foreign governments repress and restrict religious freedom. These restrictions range from legal limitations on worship to outright violence targeting Christians because of their faith. Governments in various countries severely limit Christians' religious expression, including teaching, worship, and practice, with countries like Burma, China, Cuba, Iran, Nicaragua, Nigeria, North Korea, and Saudi Arabia among those who impose such ongoing, systematic, and egregious restrictions. We'll hear about a number of governments that engage in these violations today and bear witness to the stories of the people they persecute merely for asserting their freedom of religion or belief, or FoRB as it's known. Reports of Christian persecution abroad paint a dark picture for religious freedom. In Burma, the current military authority, also known as Tatmadaw, has banned house church gatherings since 2023. Police have compelled some Christian communities to give them lists of individuals who attend Mass, restricting their freedom of religion and endangering their privacy. Organizations monitoring the military's ongoing violence in Burma estimate Burmese authority have destroyed more than 200 churches and killed more than 85 clerics. The strikes perpetrated by the Burmese armed forces have also killed worshipers, including children. International monitors have called for investigations into these attacks on civilians and religious sites as war crimes. But in the meantime, Christians in Burma are at grave risk and suffer repression by Burma's military regime. In China, the government arrests and imprisons house church leaders, including the father of one of our witnesses today. Last month, Chinese authorities conducted a series of mass raids on churches just ahead of Christmas. Chinese authorities also routinely target Catholic clergy who refuse to join the state-controlled Catholic organization. Religious leaders and laypersons, including Jimmy Lai, face spurious charges of fraud and subversion. In recent years, the government has demolished churches and removed crosses from public view. Additionally, the government strictly polices Christian religious material and bans certain Christian apps as well. The persecutions of Christians abroad is a stark illustration of just how far governments will go to unjustly restrict freedom of religion or belief. The United States has a critical role to play in holding accountable those engaged in this persecution. The U.S. government should also work to prevent refoulement of Christians fleeing religious persecution to countries where their lives are at risk. At a time when Christians abroad face attacks simply for their faith, U.S. leadership is critical now more than ever.
A core aspect of the United States founding is rooted in religious freedom for all. As we approach the 250th anniversary as a nation, we must remind ourselves that this fundamental freedom is at the center of what it truly means to be free. As the United States advances its foreign policy, USCIRF calls on the U.S. Congress and the administration to protect this universal freedom for everyone. With that, I would like to now turn the floor over to USCIRF Vice Chair Asif Mahmood for his opening remarks.
Thank you, Chair Hartzler, and respected members of Congress. I would like to welcome everyone to today's hearing and thank our witnesses for being here. As Chair Hartzler correctly noted, the persecution of Christians abroad is a freedom of religion or belief issue that affects everyone because freedom of religion and belief is universal. When governments deny Christians the right to gather peacefully for worship, live according to the tenets of their faith, or live in freedom, it restricts freedom of religion or belief for us all. For example, across Africa, governments have restricted freedom of religion or belief by preventing Christians from using houses of worship. In Somalia, the government has reportedly prevented the rebuilding of old churches and opening of new ones. In Sudan, the Sudan Armed Forces destroyed a Pentecostal church in Al-Hajj Yusuf without notice. Non-state actors have brutally attacked Christians in Africa as well. In Cameroon, Jamaatul Sunnah lil Dawat al-Jihad, also called aka JAS, Boko Haram, abducted a priest this past May. And Allied Democratic Forces, or ADF, in the Democratic Republic of Congo continue to kill Christians in attacks throughout 2025. And these are just a few examples. Furthermore, USCIRF remains particularly concerned that Nigeria's government continued to tolerate attacks on Christian communities and houses of worship by ethnic Fulani militants, armed insurgents, and bandit groups. Christians in Nigeria's Middle Belt report they are afraid to gather for worship for fear they will be violently attacked. These fears are sadly well-founded. In May, Al-Qaeda affiliate Ansara fighters reportedly kidnapped 160 mainly Christian children and killed 8 people. In Niger State, assailant from ISWAP also executed 3 Christians and shared images of these grotesque executions on social media. And in October, bandits killed Reverend Yahya Kambasaya and abducted 20 others in Kaduna State. When President Trump designated Nigeria a country of particular concern, or CPC, in October, USCIRF welcomed the designation and called for a tough plan to ensure that perpetrators of violence are held on account. These threats facing religious freedom around the world are enormous. Yet, the United States is not powerless in the face of this persecution. The Trump administration and US Congress both play an influential role in addressing the religious freedom restrictions that USCIRF has reported on over the years. Firstly, the ambassador at large for international religious freedom plays a critical role in the United States' effort to promote freedom of religion or belief abroad. Administration led by both parties have nominated, and Congress has confirmed, strong defenders of freedom of religion or belief. USCIRF calls on the administration to renominate an IRF ambassador and for Congress to swiftly hold confirmation hearings for this position. Next, the administration should work for the repeal globally of blasphemy laws used to target Christians and other religious minorities. 96 countries around the world have blasphemy laws which violate protections on religious belief, including those that offend. USCIRF's blasphemy law compendium details the full scope of these laws and is accessible on our website, that is USCIRF.gov. In other ways, the Trump administration has indicated its interest in protecting freedom of religion or belief for Christians. Many of these threats Christians face abroad relate to registration laws. These laws create undue burden on Christians and often reflect government interference with Christians' ability to exercise freedom of religion or belief. Administration officials should advocate for the repeal of these registration laws unfairly targeting Christians, or advocate they be equitably applied to all organizations. Discriminating against Christians or any other religious minority runs afoul of protections on freedom of religion or belief. The administration should also raise the cases of victims of freedom of religion or belief in high-level engagements with foreign government officials. The White House's outspoken approach to the promotion of international religious freedom is squarely aligned with public advocacy for freedom of religion or belief prisoners, especially in those countries that target Christians and other religious minorities. These include Afghanistan, Azerbaijan, India, Pakistan, and Russia. Governments must understand that to harass, imprison, mistreat, or pressure Christians on the basis of their faith is not only an affront to religious freedom, but also a violation of international law. Finally, the U.S. Department of State should review its policies and support organizations promoting the protection of at-risk Christian communities abroad. These include early warning systems that protect Christians from violence on the basis of their faith, interreligious programming, and resource distribution by faith-based groups who build trust and dismantle hatred towards Christians. For its part, Congress should ensure that the administration's effort to protect Christians abroad are funded. It should continue to hold hearings about conditions facing Christians, such as the one held in 2025 on Nigeria, where they face religious persecutions. I thank the witnesses for being here today to help shed light on these issues through their testimony. And I now turn the floor back to Chair Hartzell.
Yes. Thank you very much, Vice Chair Mahmood. We are honored today to have some members of Congress who are here to share their thoughts about this topic. And we truly have a partnership with USCIRF with Congress. We're an agency of them, make recommendations to them, and we appreciate the champions that we have here on Capitol Hill who are fighting for everyone's ability to live according to their faith. And so I wanted to introduce and have give an opportunity for the two Congress members who are here now, and then we may have some others come in as well. And we appreciate you taking time in your schedule to be here. We thank you for what you do, speaking up for faith. And we're going to start with Congresswoman Mary Miller from Illinois. And you can share from the podium there. Thank you so much, Congresswoman.
Thank you, Chairwoman Hartzler, for the invitation. And I just so appreciate your faith and just how impassioned you are to fight against evil by overcoming it with good. So I'm so thankful for you all that showed up today. As a Christian, I am deeply concerned about the persecution of my brothers and sisters in Christ around the world. And not just since I came to Congress. When I was raising my children, we regularly read The Voice of the Martyrs and other literature so I could inform my children and we could pray for those that were suffering. When the International Religious Freedom Act passed in 1998, it allowed for more diplomatic and economic pressures to be placed on countries that persecuted religious minorities. Since 2009, the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom has recommended that the State Department designate Nigeria as a country of particular concern, or a CPC. due to their continued violent persecution of Christians. President Trump was the first to finally address these concerns by designating Nigeria as a CPC in 2020. President Biden was quick to revoke this designation in 2021. But President Trump redesignated Nigeria as a CPC in 2025. And actually, when the president of South Africa was here with President Trump, I messaged President Trump and I asked him to please not forget about the Christians that were suffering in Nigeria. Last month, President Trump took decisive action by striking ISIS groups in Nigeria responsible for the slaughter of Christians. China has also been particularly harsh in its persecution of religious minorities, including Christians. Since 1999, China has consistently been designated as a CPC by both Republican and Democratic administrations. In the fall of 2025, the Chinese Communist Party arrested Pastor Ezra Jin, founder of Beijing's Zion Church, in the largest arrest campaign against Christians in over 4 decades. To this day, we are still waiting for Pastor Jin's release. And I understand that Pastor Jin's daughter is here testifying. Thank you for your courage and your bravery speaking out for your father and for all persecuted Christians. And know that my family and I will be praying for you. Saudi Arabia has been designated as a CPC since 2004 for its severe persecution of religious minorities, including Christians. In our hemisphere, Nicaragua was designated as CPC in 2023 after the government arrested 11 pastors associated with the US-based Mountain Gateway Ministry. After being convicted on sham charges and spending nearly a year in prison, they were released in September of 2024. I look forward to working with the Senior Advisor for Global Religious Freedom, Mark Walker, as he and President Trump seek to curtail the rise of Christian persecution. Thank you again, Chairwoman Hartzler, for your leadership. I look forward to our hearing from our witnesses, and I will continue to pray for Leah. Her testimony just really touched me, and oh my, the suffering that's gone on. I thank you all for standing up for them.
Yeah, thank you so much, Congresswoman. We appreciate so much your words, most of all your heart, and your prayers and your leadership here. So thank you. We're so blessed to have you. And now we're also blessed to have Congressman Mark Alford here. And he has the wonderful blessing of representing Missouri's 4th District, which is near and dear to my heart. He's doing a great job, but he's also a man of faith. And appreciate you taking time today to be here to speak on this very important topic. So, Congressman Mark Alford.
Well, thank you. Thank you to the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom for convening this very, very critical hearing. And thank you to the witnesses who will testify here today to shine a light, I think, on one of the greatest human rights crises of our time. I want to thank my predecessor, my good friend, my mentor, Congresswoman, now Chairwoman Vicki Hartzler of this great commission, who has really been a long and strong voice for religious freedom and who encourages me personally through her texts and phone calls to stay deeply engaged in this fight and a closer walk with God. Thank you. You know, around the world today, Christians are being targeted simply because of what they believe. They are denied the right to worship freely, to teach their children their faith, to speak openly about their convictions, and in far too many cases, they are harassed, imprisoned, driven from their homes, and yes, even murdered. You see, folks, religious freedom is not a Western value. It is a human right. And when it is violated anywhere, it should concern freedom-loving people everywhere. We see this tragedy playing out vividly in places like Nigeria. In Nigeria, religious violence continues to spiral out of control. Islamic terrorist groups exploit weak security and failed governance to terrorize Christian communities as well as some Muslim communities. Entire villages have been attacked, churches have been burned, families have been displaced, and just in recent months, hundreds of children have been kidnapped from schools, and deadly attacks continue to devastate rural communities. Recently, before the holidays, members of our Subcommittee on Appropriations, National Security, and State-Related Programs went at the behest of President Trump to Nigeria to see firsthand what was going on there. It's very disturbing, and reported back to the White House. I'll get into this in just a bit, but President Trump means business on this. He realizes that an affront to religious values and freedom on another shore is an affront to religious freedoms on this shore. The Nigerian government has a responsibility to protect its citizens. And right now, too many innocent people are paying the price for that failure. No child should fear going to school because of their faith. No family should fear gathering to worship. Silence in the face of this violence only emboldens those who carry it out. Just this past Christmas, President Trump, in his leadership and working alongside the Nigerian government, the U.S. took action against ISIS militants, terrorists, as I call them. They're not militants, they're terrorists, responsible for brutal violence in the region, as Congresswoman Miller pointed out. Our president sent a clear message. America will not sit back. America will not sit back while innocent people are terrorized for who they are and what they believe. We also see systematic persecution in China, where the Chinese Communist Party continues its relentless campaign to control, to silence, and to reshape Christian beliefs. Pastors are being imprisoned on vague charges like illegal use of information networks. Churches are forced to remove crosses and replace scripture with communist propaganda. Faith leaders are ordered to align their teaching with Chairman Xi's ideology. This so-called sinicization of religion is not about cultural harmony, ladies and gentlemen. It is about absolute control. The CCP does not hide its actions. Officials openly tell religious leaders that loyalty to the party is more important than loyalty to God Almighty. That's unacceptable. The United States should never look the other way, and we are not. That is why Senator Ted Budd and I introduced the Combating the Persecution of Religious Groups in China Act. This legislation holds senior CCP officials accountable for religious freedom abuses. It strengthens America's efforts to protect persecuted faith communities. It reinforces China's designation as a country of particular concern, and it urges the international community to formally condemn these violations. Simply put, if you jail Christians, if you demolish churches, if you trample the basic human rights, there should be consequences. The Chinese people deserve better. Those in prison for their faith deserve access to medical care, legal counsel, and ultimately their freedom. America must continue to lead with moral clarity and strength. I also want to point out that Congress and President Trump have made religious freedom a clear priority. The United States has used sanctions, diplomacy, and international pressure to confront these abuses. But yes, there's more work to be done. Hearings like this matter, Chairwoman and members of this commission. They matter because they ensure that the stories of persecuted believers are not forgotten and that their stories are told on a national and international level. They guide policymakers towards real solutions, and they remind the world that religious freedom is not negotiable. You see, folks, America first does not mean America alone. It means we are the strongest that we can be so that we can lead with courage and determination, standing up for the vulnerable, confronting tyranny, and defending the God-given rights that make society strong and free. I look forward to continuing to work together to advance policies to protect Christians and all people of faith around the world. May God bless you. God bless the United States. God bless this commission, and may God keep you safe. Thank you very much.
Wow. Thank you so much, Congressman Alford. That was inspiring, and we appreciate so much both of your leadership and the colleagues who couldn't be here and some who may still come later on throughout the morning. But now we turn to our brave, courageous witnesses who are here today to tell their stories, the stories of other fellow Christians that they know from their countries. And we just are very thankful that you are here today. Wanted to introduce all of the witnesses, and then they'll turn to them individually for their testimony. But our first witness will be Grace Jen Drexel, who is a national security analyst with extensive experience advising Congress on religious freedom and related human rights issues in China. In October, Chinese authorities arrested her father, Pastor Ezra Jin Mingri, along with 30 Christian members of the Zion Church, which Pastor Jin founded. Then we'll hear from Ipik Hiduk. He's the founder of the Montagnard Stand for Justice. He advocates for Montagnard Christians in Vietnam who face discrimination and restrictions on freedom of religion and belief on account of their religious identity. Abdel Baki Saeed Abdo is a journalist and Christian from Yemen who was detained in Egypt for his peaceful religious expression. Then we'll hear, he has a video, but unfortunately the video isn't working, so that will be added to our website. And then we're going to hear from an anonymous pastor and member of the Shin community of Burma, currently residing in the United States. I will read his testimony, which is a horrific account of the Tatmadaw violence against Chin people. Then our next witness will be Nagede Tekmamariam from Eritrea. He is a Jehovah's Witness who conscientiously objected to mandatory military service on religious grounds, and for adherence to these religious beliefs, Eritrean authorities held Nagede in abysmal prison conditions for more than 25 years. Then we will hear from Dr. Rebecca Dolly, founder of the Center for Caring, Empowering, and Peace Initiatives and ordained minister of the Church of the Brethren. Dr. Dolly has worked to support Christian and other religious communities affected by Boko Haram in northeast Nigeria. After extensive threats from the group, Rebecca and her family left Nigeria and found safe haven here in the United States. Next, we'll hear testimony from Marta Patricia Molina, a Nigerian lawyer and researcher on the Catholic Church. Her statement will be read in English by Urila Saraz from the organization Nicaraguanes in El Mundo, Texas. Our next witness is Anika Maria Anthony, a lawyer and chief executive of the Voice Society. Ms. Anthony has represented many Christians charged in Pakistan with blasphemy. And our final witness is Pastor Nourida bin Benzin, former General Secretary of the Protestant Church of Algeria, or EPA. Algerian authorities have systematically targeted the EPA with church closures and have repeatedly failed to renew the group's registration on spurious grounds. After years of persecution, Pastor Benzid and his family fled religious persecution in Algeria and currently reside in the United States. In addition, we've also received several testimonies from Christians who fear for their safety should they speak out publicly today. Their testimony, which will be included for the record on USCIRF's website, bears witness to the immense sacrifices they make every day. So I'm now pleased to recognize our first witness, Grace Jen Drexel. Ms. Drexel, please proceed with your testimony.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, members of Congress. Thank you so much for this opportunity, for your courage, your leadership, and for all that you are doing for people of faith. My name is Grace Jin Drexel. On October 10th, my father, Pastor Ezra Jin, was arrested by the Chinese authority along with 27 other pastors and church leaders from Zion Church. 18 total remain imprisoned. This crackdown represents the largest takedown of an independent Christian congregation in China since the Cultural Revolution, a sweep so brazen that it has drawn international condemnation, including from Secretary Marco Rubio. I urge the Chinese government to release all of these Zion Church members immediately and unconditionally. To understand why my father is in prison today, you must understand that China, under Chairman Xi Jinping, has embarked on a systematic campaign to achieve total state control over religious life through what the government calls Sinozization of religion, officially framed as making religion more Chinese. This is fundamentally dishonest propaganda. Let me be clear. Sinozization is not about making religion more Chinese. It is repression, plain and simple, masquerading as cultural adaptation. Christians in China has been Chinese for generations. We already use Chinese Bibles, sing indigenous hymns, have developed our own theological traditions. When the government demands Sinozization in practice, it means removing crosses and replacing them with portraits of Xi Jinping, replacing hymns with Revolutionary Party songs, rewriting sermons to align with socialist core values, and installing facial recognition cameras in sanctuaries. What the Chinese actually mean by Sinozization is a complete subordination of all religious life to Communist Party control. In 2018, Zion Church became a target specifically because the church leadership refused the government's demands to install 23 facial recognition cameras inside the sanctuary. When Zion Church refused, authorities harassed hundreds of church members. On September 9, 2018, hundreds of police brutally seized the church building. Zion Church lost its physical building, but my father and the congregation developed a hybrid online-offline model that expanded nationwide, launching 100 new church plants in 40 cities across China. This really shows how the Chinese Christians are extremely. The church grew in the largest size ever, often reaching 10,000 individuals daily. Since 2025, a new and more severe wave of persecution is underway. Leading up to the October arrest, several Zion Church gatherings in the dozens of cities was disrupted during Sunday service. Over 150 pastors, elders, and church members were taken to police stations. On the weekend of October 10th, nearly 30 pastors and church leaders were simultaneously arrested across 11 cities, a level of coordination that could only come from the centralized government planning. This campaign is intensifying. 6 people remained detained from police raids on Early Rain Covenant Church in Chengdu just last week, the same church whose pastor, Wang Yi, has been in prison since 2018. Last month, more than 1,000 police were purportedly deployed in Wenzhou, detaining Christians and dismantling Yang Church building. In June, Pastor Yang Rongli of Golden Lampstand Church received a harsh 15-year sentence. Pastor Gao Chenfu of Light of Zion Church in Xi'an was detained with his wife in May and is facing similarly heavy jail time for peacefully leading his church. These church leaders are not punished because they are being political, but only to worship freely while recognizing God, not the CCP, as the sole head of the church. And yet, the CCP's totalitarian overreach and religious repression carry severe consequences. Pastor Wang Lin, Pastor Gao Yingjia, Pastor Wang Cong, Pastor Sun Chong, and many other Zion Church leaders currently detained leave behind family members, including very young children. Many witnessed their parents and loved ones handcuffed and harshly dragged out from their homes in the middle of the night. Since 2018, my father has been under a travel exit ban, and I have not seen my father in person in 7 years. He was not there at my wedding to walk me down the aisle, and he has never met his grandchildren. Now we hear that our loved ones are made to sleep on mats on the floor, subject to sleep deprivation and endless interrogation as punishment. Many of them, including my father, have severe health conditions. I urge this commission and the other leaders to say our names. I urge this commission to recognize that what is happening in China is not merely a domestic matter, but a global threat to religious freedom and human dignity. If the international community remains silent, we signal acceptance and impunity for such trampling of universal human rights. And unfortunately, what happens in China does not stay in China. Left unchecked, Beijing's wave of repression will reverberate around the world. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Grace. Very powerful. Appreciate you being here so much, sharing those insights. Our next witness is Yipik Hidak from Montenegro's, I'm not saying that right, I'm sure, Stand for Justice. So, Mr. Hidak, please proceed with your remarks.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Yipik Hidak. I am a Montagnard indigenous Christian from the Central Highlands of Vietnam. Thank you very much for giving me opportunity to testify regarding the systematic and escalating persecution of Montagnard people under communist regime. Since early 2024, following the illness of late General Secretary Nguyen Phu Trong, General To Lam, formerly the Prime Minister of Public Security, and now the General Secretary, has directed an intensified crackdown on Montagnard Christians under his leadership. The Ministry of Public Security has targeted unregistered house churches with unprecedented aggression. Those who refuse to cease their religious practices are subjected to arbitrary arrest and interrogation. When I was young, I have been targeted by state surveillance and arrested 3 times without justifications, just because of my identity as a minority indigenous person. Realizing I could not safely pursue my calling in my homeland to share the gospel to the people, the children, I decided to went to Cambodia to teach the stateless children in Cambodia. While I was in Cambodia, so I went to Thailand to attend to the human rights training. I thought that after the training, I would go back to my homeland to do the advocacy work and helping the children. But unfortunately, when I was in Cambodia, the Vietnamese police harassed my family and to call me to go back to Vietnam to arrest me. But finally, while my father was working at the garden by himself, and he was kidnapped and hang him on a bamboo tree. And then I couldn't go back to Vietnam. The police texted me to go back to Vietnam. They promised that they will not do anything for me, but my family called me that please do not go back because unsafe. That I decided to fled to Thailand to seek refuge over there with the UNHCR. While I was in the Thailand, I feel that's not enough. I need to do something to find the justice for my dad and other people. While I was in Thailand, I was working with as an interpretation for the refugee over there, and I heard more like sad story, persecution story. So I decided to form a group called Montagnard Stand for Justice. So this is a peacefully advocate for our right. The persecution has now reached crisis point. In March 2024, MSFJ has designated a terrorist organization. Our co-founder, Equin Bundap, was recently extradited from Thailand and imprisoned for 10 years. He is not alone. Over the past 22 months, several peaceful preachers have been imprisoned on vague charge. Nai Blanc, 4.5 years, Ikret Bunya, 13 years, and Ithing, 9 years. Most tragically, in March 2024, preacher Ipum Bunya was found dead in a cemetery just hours after being summoned to meet with security police. Furthermore, on December 29, 2025, the state-run media outlet VTV aired a fabricated confession from Equin Bundap. VTV functions as a propaganda aim of a taller Ministry of Public Security with agent operation in the US under media visas. This is a clear case of transnational repression. And I urge the US government and international organization to pay attention to Equin Bundap. Right now he's in prison. hopefully that we can do something to put pressure on Vietnamese government to not do anything harm to him and other house churches members. And I also respectfully urge the following action: directly accountability, hold General Secretary Tolam and Ministry of Public Security accountable for these specific human rights abuses. And secondly, please safely monitoring, ensure safely of Iquin Bundaf and Nay Blanc, Ikrek Bunya, and Itinir. And I urge UNHCR protection, US protection, the refugee. And now the target is they going to target to MSFJ member in Thailand. What they did to Iquin Bundap, they want to do the same thing for MSFJ member in Thailand as well. Not just only that, they want to stop the house churches in the Central Highland of Vietnam. And the last one, visa vetting. Implement stricter vetting for media visa application for Vietnam to prevent state agents from operating on the US soil. Thank you very much. God bless you.
Thank you, and God bless you. And we are so sorry about your father, but we appreciate your courage and what you're doing. And the idea that they're calling your organization and designating it a terrorist organization is just reprehensible. I mean, that's unacceptable. So thank you for being here, having the courage to share your story and to speak up for those who can't speak up for themselves. We appreciate it. And we are joined now by Congressman John Rose from Tennessee. And thank you so much for being here. We appreciate your leadership here on Capitol Hill for people of faith all around the world. And thank you for taking time to come and share your thoughts today. So please invite you to come up here and to share what you'd like to about Christian persecution. Appreciate it.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you. And thank you for what you all do and for the interest that's demonstrated by those present here today. It's an opportunity, a great opportunity to speak to this important hearing. I am John Rose, and I have the honor of representing Tennessee's 6th Congressional District in the U.S. House of Representatives, serving in my 4th term, my 8th year in office, not running for re-election, headed home to Tennessee. But I want to begin today by commending the work that this commission does on behalf of Christians around the globe. Like many in this room, no doubt, I am a Christian. And I practice my faith and am so very grateful to live in a nation where I'm able to do that openly on a continual and daily basis, and to do so peacefully with my family. We're blessed to live in a country where we're free to live and worship freely. Yet, as is obviously being discussed here today, that isn't the case in many places around the world. The work you do is critical for raising awareness about the plight persecuted Christians and those of other faiths face every day in so many places around this world. In Congress, I am proud to have supported legislation and spoken out regarding some of the atrocities facing Christians, particularly in Nigeria. As you are no doubt aware, in 2023, more than 80% of all religion-based murders in the world took place there. It's why I joined many of my colleagues in calling on the previous administration to redesignate the nation as a country of particular concern, or CPC. Like you, I was elated to see the Trump administration restore that designation late last year. It will enable the federal government to take concrete steps to hold individuals accountable for human rights abuses, and it sends, I hope and I believe, a powerful message all around the world. As a critical partner of the United States in the war on terrorism in Africa, Nigeria must be held accountable for its failure to stop religious violence within its own borders. The U.S. has supported the Nigerian military for over a decade in its own struggle against jihadists. It is evident that poor human rights standards in Nigeria only serve to extend the conflict, and the U.S. is no longer turning a blind eye to this violence, and I'm proud of that. The United States must stand firmly against religious persecution within our borders and within the borders of those nations we consider to be our allies. In Congress, I look forward to working the remaining time I'm here with you to continue supporting policies that encourage religious freedom in every corner of the world. I want to wrap up today by thanking you for your recent efforts to highlight the persecution of Christians in Syria. I am hopeful your most recent annual report will bring about meaningful policy changes and improve the lives of our brothers and sisters in Christ around the globe. We live in interesting and perilous times, and unfortunately, we see a rising tide of persecution, and we should be thankful in this country for the protections that we enjoy, but we cannot take them for granted here or anywhere else in the world, and I commend you for fighting to protect the liberties of individuals to worship as they see fit. Thank you for having me here today.
Thank you for being here, and thank you for your great remarks. We appreciate all your support and leadership, and I'll say to both of you, thank you for your friendship, too. It's so good to see you. Appreciate it. Now I'm going to read the testimony from an anonymous pastor in Burma. It was too dangerous for him to share his name, but we felt like his remarks about what's going on there needed to be heard. So I'll just start what he sent. He said, I'm deeply grateful to the commissioners of the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom for granting me the opportunity to share my testimony and remarks at this hearing. I would also like to express my heartfelt appreciation for your tireless commitment to defending freedom of religion or belief worldwide, including Burma and Myanmar. I am an ethnic Chin Christian from northern Burma. I have been a Baptist pastor for 16 years in a village where the Myanmar military, Tatmadaw, is stationed. 3 months after the 2021 military coup, the soldiers entered my home and searched every room, confiscated my computer and many of my religious books before burning them outside. They ordered me to stop all my religious activities, including preaching and worship. Tatmadaw also bombed our church twice and damaged 2 buildings. I came to the realization that soldiers were targeting religious workers and religious buildings. Baptist News Global rightly notes Christian churches are explicitly targeted with bombings, fires, and mass arrest in Burma, Myanmar. I fled to the forest about 4 miles away from the village along with all my villagers and church members. We built a shelter to live in and a shelter for worship as well. I led worship services, prayers, and preached to the internally displaced people in the forest. On Easter in 2023, we scheduled the worship service to begin at 9 a.m. Unfortunately, the military junta's jet fighter dropped bombs on our village, forcing us to cancel the Easter service. With my wife and 3 kids, we fled the military junta's persecution and legally arrived in the United States in August 2023. I am currently in the United States under temporary protected status, which has been terminated effective January 26 of 2026. My life is in extreme danger if I am forced to return to Burma as the Tatmadaw continues to rule the country with terror. The military junta seeks to legitimize its administration by holding elections. The junta leader, General Min Aung Hlaing, justified himself by claiming the election is free and fair. However, the Tatmadaw continues to imprison democratically elected President U Win Myint, State Councilor Aung San Suu Kyi, and many other leaders. Destroying of churches continues. Insecurity is widespread. Millions of people in Burma are still displaced, including my church members, without a house for living, a church to worship and pray, assistance for surviving, a school for learning, and hope for the future. They're holding on by a thread, struggling to survive even one more day. Christianity in Burma, Myanmar has been intentionally, structurally, and systematically discriminated against and persecuted since Prime Minister Un's declaration of Buddhism as the state religion in 1958. The government of the Union of Burma, Myanmar, recognizes the special position of Buddhism in its constitution. Granting Buddhism legal status in the Constitution is understood as permitting it to marginalize other religions rather than to ensure equal standing within the union. Allow me to highlight the recent violations of the Tatmadaw against Christians in Burma. He has 5 examples. One, on Christmas Day, just a few weeks ago, the Tatmadaw's jet fighter bombed and destroyed 7 houses in Minden Town, Chin State, Burma. According to the Burma Research Institute's statement on December 31st, the main reason for the bombing was that the military regime believed that many people were gathering to celebrate Christmas in that church. On November 19th of last year at midnight, the Tatmadaw's fighter jets dropped bombs twice on Thuklek village in Chin State, Burma, and the Assembly of God Church, and the school were destroyed. The Burma Research Institute has documented. In November, also, the Tatmadaw entered Taegon Baptist Church, Kalay Township, Saigon region, and confiscated church properties, sound systems, including speakers, a piano, guitars, 2 engine generators, hymn books, and Bibles. None of the Taegon villagers and the church members have been able to return home. The church's senior pastor informed me of the updates. On November 30th of last year, an ethnic Chin Christian pastor, Po Min Lin, was arrested in Yangon and sent to military training by the Tatmadaw. It is not only an assault on an individual, but also an intentional abuse of the fundamental principle of religious liberty and a systematic violence against religious freedom to force this pastor to enter the military. After the 2021 coup, by citing Chin Human Rights Organization, Vatican News reports on April 11th, 2025, that at least 107 religious buildings, including 67 churches, have been destroyed in Chin State by army bombings. Although the exact number of damaged, destroyed churches and other religious buildings is unknown, this number is undoubtedly increasing. The situation in Burma has grown increasingly dire, showing no signs of genuine improvement. Therefore, with great honor, I would like to urge the United States to continue to support Christians in Burma and to protect their religious works in the USA. Okay. Our next witness is Negede Teklemariam. Negede, I welcome you to share your remarks.
Thank you, commissioners, staffs, and as advocate, I appreciate this opportunity.
Speak a little more directly into the microphone.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, commissioners, staffs, and respected advocates. I appreciate this opportunity. My name is Negede. I spent over 26 years in prison in Eritrea, not because I committed a crime, but because I am one of Jehovah's Witnesses. While imprisoned, I was frequently subjected to torture. Over 30 years ago, the president banned Jehovah's Witnesses in Eritrea and revoked our citizenship. On September 17, 1994, soldiers came to my home in Asmara in the middle of the night and dragged me away in my pajamas. For many years, I was kept in an overcrowded all-metal cell. During the day, the metal walls were so hot, they would burn our skin. At night, we froze. We had no medical care, not enough food, and were forced to work hard. We had to use the bathroom outside, like animals. I was never charged with a crime, never taken to court, and never knew when I might be released. The worst part was when the soldiers tried to force me to give up my faith. One night, soldiers threw me into a hole and told me I would be killed unless I joined the military. But I could not betray my faith. They then buried me in a burning hot sun up to my neck. They fired shots near my head and said another prisoner had already been killed. I survived, but others did not. I was released in December 2020, along with 27 others. But Jehovah's Witnesses in Eritrea continue to be put in prison, tortured, and pressured to give up their faith. Today, 64 Jehovah's Witnesses are behind bars. This includes 10 elderly men and women, like Letta Abraham Tesfaye. She is 87 years old. They live in a cruel condition without medical care. Some became very sick, had surgery, but were put back in prison before they could heal. Over the past 3 decades, more than 300 Jehovah's Witnesses have been imprisoned under these harsh conditions, most without charge or a release date. At least 7 have died due to the inhuman treatment in prison. Families are suffering too. Jehovah's Witnesses in prison are not allowed family visits. Some prisoners never saw their children grow up or missed their weddings. Some were not even allowed to attend the funeral of their loved ones. One young man is now in the same prison where his father died for his faith. Others are in prison with their family members, spouses, parents, siblings, and cousins. Although I am now free, my heart is still with those who are not. I thank you for shining a light on their suffering. I hope they too can be free. But I ask, will they suffer for 26 years as I did? Will they die in prison? Or will they soon be released? In August 2025, the Africa Commission on Human and People Rights, or ACHPR, ruled that Eritrea violated my right and the right of 2 my fellow prisoners. The ACHPR ordered the government to pay compensation for imprisoning and torturing us. I am thankful for this ruling. But as Jehovah's Witnesses, we do not want conflict. We want peaceful discussion and cooperation with Eritrea. We are not against the country and want to serve it in ways that respect our belief and international human rights. Thank you again for your continued effort, because you religious prisoners are not forgotten. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Negredere. And just to make sure everybody heard, they put people in Eritrea in metal shipping containers, like you see on the back of semi-trucks going down the road, and they put them out in the desert, and they put them in there. That is the prison, and what he was sharing. I can't imagine what you've gone through. I can't imagine doing that for a week, near alone 26 years. So we are so glad that you're out and you're able to be here today speaking for others from Jehovah's Witnesses, as well as other denominations that they treat like that. And they're not, he wasn't ever charged. He wasn't even, had to go to court. I mean, this is just unacceptable. And so we appreciate so much you being here today, your courage. And we now turn to our next witness, Dr. Rebecca Dolly of the Center for Caring, Empowerment, and Peace Initiatives. So thank you very much for what you do. Thank you for sharing with us your work in Nigeria and what you see. So thank you, Dr. Dolly.
Thank you for inviting me to be a witness. And I'm here on behalf of my family, because my son too, I did not see him, whether dead or alive, since 2011. And this woman and numerous people, 53 women only, but 311 people died. So in my testimony, one person, one woman, like 10 family members or more died. So thank you again for inviting me. The radical militant Islamic group, Boko Haram, has brutally terrorized northern Nigeria since 2003. The survivors suffer trauma and face challenges threatening their survival. And they cannot get basic needs such as food, shelter, and healthcare, income, everything destroyed. From 2011 to present, my organization, Center for Caring, Empowerment, and Peace Initiative, CEPI, has provided aid to more than 2 million people and in area affected by Boko Haram. And even to the family of Chibok girls. Both Christians and Muslims are suffering in the hands of Boko Haram. Survivors at our aid distribution site were invited to share their stories. And these stories from 6,238 first-hand account of Boko Haram violent and inflicted trauma, we analyzed a random one-third, documenting 7,137 deaths and 680 adoption. In our memorial garden, CEPI has engraved the names of 160,000 murdered, and we still have over 200,000. 77% male, 23% female, 62% Christian, and then 32% Muslims. This has resulted in large population of survivors, surviving widows and fatherless orphans. And 65% of these survivors, they reported seeing this attack and killing, slaughtering. This required targeted trauma healing, school field for orphans, food, and a lot of aid that we do. There is discrimination against Christians in Nigeria since decades. Christian students in public funded school in most northern Nigeria are denied the right to be taught Christian religious studies, where their Muslim counterpart receive Islamic religious education at public expense of the public treasury. Churches are not allowed to build, Christians are not allowed to build churches in most locations, whereas mosques are freely built, sometimes with public funds. Furthermore, Christians are denying titles to their land. The Christians often subjected to threat of demolition of their churches. Additionally, Christians are denied places to study professional courses like medicine. And my son, he was admitted in medicine, but in Zaria, but he was persecuted and could not complete there. He has to come here in America. He's now cardiothoracic surgeon, to the glory of God. Law, engineering, public, and all these, some of, they are not even allowed to be admitted, although they have the qualification. And sometimes, even employment is very, very difficult to Christian there. Let us acknowledge that there are too many killings in Nigeria. Many by Boko Haram, many by bandits, Fulani herdsmen, and other terrorists. Some are political, some religious, some ethnic, and some by individual. But all Nigerian Christians, Muslims, and traditional worshippers are among those who are killed, and that violent will never end violent. All Nigerians, be they Christian or Muslim, want to live together in peace. I offer 3 recommendations. First, the US can continue to help the government eliminate terrorism and persecute those who fund it. Second, it is the job of civil society to heal trauma and build peace. I encourage the US to provide sustained support for civil society groups and to facilitate asylum for those whose lives are threatened. Thank you, US, for accepting me to come and my son. Third, the US can use diplomatic efforts to encourage all levels of government in Nigeria to respect the equal rights of all religious groups to practice their faith. But please remember, as pastor, violent always begets violent. And I'm also a survivor because I was captured by Boko Haram. I urge you to only consider peaceful method, one that encourage collaboration and strengthen communities. For too long, we have bore the blunt, and mostly women and children. So, but I know when communities stand strongly together, we shall overcome. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. Thank you.
Well, thank you. We're so grateful for the work that you've done, how you've turned something tragic in your life to impacting over 2 million people that you're helping. And thank you for being a voice for them today. And we really, really appreciate your testimony and your work. And now we turn to another friend of religious freedom, and our friend Jim McGovern. We thank you so much for being here today and for all your work speaking up for those who have no voice today. And so we invite you now to come. Thank you for taking time in your schedule to be here and share some thoughts with us today. Thank you, Congressman Jim McGovern.
Well, thank you very much, Chair Hartzler, my former colleague, and Vice Chair Mahmoud, and this incredible group of human rights champions, and to all of you, thank you so much for being here. And I apologize that I'm coming in now and interrupting these incredible testimonies. But I want to thank everybody for convening this important hearing on freedom of religion and belief and violations against Christians abroad. I also, again, want to thank today's witnesses for sharing their insight and expertise, in some cases at great personal risk, and we all appreciate that. It is encouraging to see this Commission's continued bipartisan commitment to defending one of the most fundamental human rights, the freedom to believe, worship, and live according to one's conscience. As USCIRF's 2025 report revealed, this right is under threat all around the world. Religious groups face many forms of discrimination and persecution. Governments criminalize religious practice. Extremist groups target houses of worship and clergy. The world's Christian communities have been among those targeted. In Vietnam, authorities continue to arrest, detain, imprison, and torture members of unrecognized religious groups, including Christians. USCIRF has documented more than 80 such cases on its freedom of religion or beliefs victims list. One of these individuals, E. Pum Bia, is recognized as a prisoner of conscience under the Tom Lantos Human Rights Commission's Defending Freedoms Project. He and all those imprisoned for their religion must be immediately and unconditionally released. In Pakistan, blasphemy laws remain a major obstacle to religious freedom. Those convicted of blasphemy are sentenced to death, and even an accusation can incite mob violence. Victims rarely receive the protection or justice to which they are entitled. The Christian community of Jaranwala, for example, reports that the government has yet to deliver accountability for vigilante attacks on dozens of churches in 2023. And in Nigeria, persistent violence against Christian communities raises serious concerns about the state's ability to fulfill its obligation under international law. Christians, alongside Muslims and other civilians, have been targeted by armed groups. And I was horrified by the abduction of hundreds of students and staff last year from a Catholic school in north-central Nigeria. And it is heartening that the victims have been released, but their abductors have yet to be held accountable. USCIRF has recommended that these countries and several others be designated by the State Department as countries of particular concern. And I commend Secretary Rubio for following this recommendation with respect to Nigeria and urge him to bring the State Department's CPC list into full alignment with USCIRF's recommendations. I also believe it is critical that U.S. engagement on matters of international religious freedom occurs in tandem with efforts to promote the full spectrum of internationally recognized human rights. Human rights are indivisible and interdependent. When governments take aim at freedom of thought, conscience, and religion, other rights are put at risk. Likewise, when the promotion of religious freedom is decoupled from the promotion of other rights, our efforts are less effective. Addressing violations against Christians worldwide requires a holistic, rights-based approach, and this means consistently raising freedom of religion or belief and related rights in bilateral dialogues, multilateral fora, and security partnerships, and supporting international human rights mechanisms that produce credible reporting, monitor compliance with standards, and promote accountability for violations. And this also means the treating persecution of Christians with no more or no less relative attention than any other community of believers or non-believers. Any appearance of favoritism in our government's policy undermines the larger effort to promote religious freedom, including that of Christians. You know, the attacks against individuals and groups and places of worship all around the world is at an all-time high. Things are getting worse in so many places. And it is of great concern to all of us, and we need to find more effective tools to respond. I wear these prayer beads that were given to me by His Holiness the Dalai Lama. He blessed them and gave them to me and told me that they're to help deal with my anxiety, my worries, my fears, my negativity. And this was a year and a half ago. I want to see him soon to tell him they're not working, because my concerns have only intensified. What is happening to Tibetan Buddhists at the hands of the Chinese government is unconscionable, and we all should care about that as well. But also, it does not mean engaging in unauthorized military action against militant groups. At best, such actions temporarily reduce the capacity of violent groups to target civilians, and at worst, they lead to civilian casualties, displacement, and greater polarization, outcomes that undermine our goals. Finally, to be effective advocates for Christians abroad, we must protect the rights of Christians here at home. In Broadview, Illinois, federal authorities have imposed a ban on prayer outside of an ICE detention center. At that site and elsewhere, ICE has attacked worshipers and prevented detainees from accessing pastoral care. These practices contradict the very freedoms that we seek to defend overseas, and they must end. So once again, I thank today's witnesses for demonstrating what it looks like to speak up for human rights, even and especially when it is difficult. I can't tell you how grateful I am for your courage and for your being here today, and how inspired I am to be here and to see this room filled with people. It gives me great hope. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Congressman. We appreciate all your remarks and for your leadership. Thank you. Now we're going to turn to Martha Patricia Molina to introduce herself, followed by comments translated into English and read by Ms. Sanz.
Good morning. My name is Marta Patricia Molina. I'm from Nicaragua. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, this Honorable Commission, for this invitation. I'm Marta Patricia Molina from Nicaragua, Central America. I'm the author of the published study, Nicaragua, a Persecuted Church, and a coordinator for Nicaraguans in the World, Texas. I'm grateful for this opportunity to share the systematic and non-relenting persecution the Nicaraguans are suffering. 19,836 aggressions and attacks have been perpetrated by the dictatorship of Daniel Ortega and Rosario Murillo in Nicaragua against priests, nuns, and lay people. I have documented each of them since April 2018. The lack of religious freedom has profoundly limited the pastoral work of priests. They're literally forced to be careful about how to proceed when they preach for fear of being imprisoned or exiled. Nicaragua is a country with a history of being predominantly Catholic and evangelical Christian. Nicaraguans live in fear because of the aggressiveness with which the dictatorship acts. They have arbitrarily closed 13 universities and institutes. With hatred, they have shut down centers for young people who were studying to become priests. 304 priests and nuns have been exiled from Nicaragua. There are many expelled or prevented from entering the country. Today, one priest has house arrest in Nicaragua. 9 out of 10 priests and nuns are Nicaraguans. The Ortega and Murillo regime also denies consular services to priests who are outside of the country carrying out pastoral missions, leaving them in a stateless condition. They deny them of the processing of their passports and copies of their documents, such as birth certificates. There are dioceses in Nicaragua that are surviving only with 30% of their priests. As a consequence, communities in the interior of Nicaragua see their religious practices limited. They can no longer go to confession regularly. There are not enough priests in the country to attend to them as there was before. Nicaraguans in general are spied on by Nicaraguan police and their paramilitaries who attend all churches and temples with phones to take photos and videos to put into facial recognition systems of those attending masses and religious services. This situation discourages the faithful from going to their churches. Nicaragua, praying in public is considered a crime. People cannot gather to pray anywhere outside the church because they are watched and intimidated into leaving. And if they're seen again, they're arrested. People attending Mass inside Catholic churches cannot pray out loud and ask God for their bishops, such as Monsignor Rolando Alvarez or Silvio Baez. Mentioning their names inside a Catholic church or even in public is a crime, and people are sent to prison as political prisoners. We have many examples of imprisonment, such as the case of Carlos Bojorge, a young man who carried a photo of Saint Oscar Arnulfo Romero from El Salvador, and during Mass he shouted, "Long live Christ the King." And for that reason, he was taken to a torture prison called El Chipote. We also have the case of a choir member who was imprisoned simply for sharing a video of himself singing at Mass, and because I published a video and he shared my post on Facebook. In Nicaragua, family members are forced to deny their own family or face severe persecution, such as the case of a priest's sister-in-law who was forbidden to mention his name in public or she would be arrested. In Nicaragua, altar boys from different dioceses, all minors, are harassed and monitored by the National Nicaraguan Police and forced to sign documents whose contents they do not understand. Their parents are harassed and threatened with imprisonment if they speak to the media. The persecution in Nicaragua has not ended. The Nicaraguan dictatorship prohibits the entry of Bibles into Nicaragua and also controls the workshops where the images that Catholics use for veneration are made. They demand that the artisans provide the names of the people who buy the images and the amounts spent on each purchase. Immigration authorities break and discard religious images and articles such as rosaries that Nicaraguans and tourists try to bring into the country. What more can we do for Nicaragua? We have already engaged in dialogue, applied pressure, and issued threats, but the dictatorship remains intact and stronger than ever, thanks to its three armed branches, the Nicaraguan National Army, the National Police, and the paramilitaries. For 8 years, the dictatorship has demonstrated that dialogue will not lead them to relinquish power. The measures that must be taken need to be more aggressive. Sanction the army, impose direct economic sanctions, bring Daniel Ortega, Rosario Murillo, and their collaborators before international justice, and prosecute them for crimes against humanity. This year has proven that it is possible. Time is short, and I urge you to read my study, Nicaragua, a Persecuted Church, to read the horrors done at the hands of Daniel Ortega and Rosario Murillo. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you both, and thank you for documenting these cases for us and being a voice for them. Just your story of the Carlos Bojorge, just simply saying in church, "Long live Christ the King," and then he was taken to a torture prison as a result of that. It's just horrible. So thank you so much. Now we'll go to witness Inigua Maria Anthony of the Voice Society. Ms. Anthony, please proceed with your testimony.
Respected Chair, Vice Chair, and Honorable Commissioners, and
Have you pushed the button? We can't hear you. Let's see. Make sure, Nathan, check here. Hold on.
Okay, yeah. Sure. Is it good? Yes.
Perfect. Thank you so much. You may proceed.
Respected Chair, Vice Chair, Honorable Commissioners, and Honorable Congress members, greetings in the name of Christ. Thank you for inviting me to testify today on freedom of religion or belief violations against Christians in Pakistan. I appear before you as a human rights lawyer and legal practitioner with direct experience documenting religious persecution cases and systematic legal abuse in Pakistan. Freedom of religion or belief in Pakistan remains under serious strain in 2024 and 25. While the Constitution formally guarantees religious freedom, the legal and institutional reality for Christians tells a very different story. Christians constitute approximately 1.3% of Pakistan's population, according to 2023 national census, yet they are excessively targeted through the misuse of criminal law, most notably blasphemy provisions, and through social and mob violence that operates with near total impunity, as we observed in the case of vandalizing churches in Jadawala, Shantinagar, and in many cases of mob violence and lynchings. Pakistan's blasphemy law, particularly Section 295C of the Penal Code, which mandates the death penalty, are routinely weaponized. These laws require no proof of intent, allow arrests on the basis of accusation only, and expose the accused to immediate risk of mob violence. In 2024 alone, at least 344 new blasphemy cases were recorded. While Muslims also face accusations, Christians and other minorities face uniquely severe consequences, including prolonged pretrial detentions, social exile, and violent retaliation even after acquittal. A National Commission for Human Rights report confirms the rise of organized false accusations, often coordinated through social media and linked to extortion networks commonly referred as blasphemy business groups. In July 2025, Pakistan's Islamabad High Court ordered an investigation into these networks, only for the order to be suspended weeks later, effectively blocking accountability. Let me illustrate the human cost. Christians are lynched, burned alive, or murdered even while in police custody under the pretext of religion. Yet no one is held responsible for these killings. Shama, a pregnant woman, and her husband Shahzad were lynched and burned alive in a Brooklyn following blasphemy allegations, with complete immunity for the perpetrators. In August 2025, police in Lahore arrested Nadeem Masih, a 49-year-old blind Christian, on blasphemy charges punishable by death. Following a false accusation, his disability did not protect him, his faith did not protect him, the mere allegation was enough to put his life at risk. Blasphemy accusations also intersect with forced conversions and child marriage. Christian girls are abducted, coerced into conversion, and married to their abductors, often with court legitimizing these acts, despite clear violations of domestic and international law. Between 2021 and 24, at least 137 Christian girls were documented as victims of forced conversion and forced marriages. Most were minors. In 2025 alone, cases such as a 13-year-old Maria Shehbaz in Lahore demonstrate how courts continue to fail Christian children. The result is climate where accusation equals guilt. Due process collapses under religious pressures. Victims are punished, not protected. Pakistan is a state party to ICCPR, yet these practices violate the right to life, freedom of religion, free trial guarantees, and child protection norms. My full written submission, which I respectfully submit for the record, provides detailed legal analysis, statistics, and documented cases. I urge USCIRF to continue designating Pakistan as a country of particular concern. Press for suspension and reform of blasphemy laws. Demand accountability for false accusers and mob violence. Prioritize protection for Christian victims, especially women and children. Thank you for your attention and your continued leadership on international religious freedom. God bless you.
God bless you. Thank you for sharing those stories of what's going on in Pakistan and the mob violence. Appreciate it. And our final witness is Pastor Noureddin Binzid. former Secretary General of the Protestant Church of Algeria. So Pastor Benzid, I invite you to share your remarks now.
Thank you so much for your invitation, and Happy New Year for everyone. So I am happy that I can have this opportunity to share about the situation of the Christians in Algeria. So my name is Nordin Benzid. I am a pastor from Kabylia, Algeria, and I was born and raised in a Muslim family. So in June 1993, my life changed forever when I met Jesus. Through him, I found truth, hope, and salvation. From that moment, my faith became the center of my life, even though I know that following Christ in Algeria would not be easy. In 2004, I founded the Spring of Life Church in Makuda, in the province of Tizi Ouzou. Our church grew, and many people came to faith despite the difficult environment, because they came from Islam to Jesus. So in 2019, I was elected General Secretary of the Algerian Protestant Church Association, a position that I held until 2021. So in 2019, the government closed our church, which was at that time like the second largest church in North Africa, with around 700 members, as all the churches in Algeria. So I will try to summarize the situation since 2006 until today, about the situation now, because all the churches are closed. The 47 churches closed, only the office of the Algerian Protestant church, which is like an umbrella, like a protection, if I can say that, between the government and the church. But so I will summarize in 5 points the situation. So the following points or evidence demonstrate a systematic policy of restriction, surveillance, and repression exercised by the Algerian government against its Christian citizens, particularly Protestant communities, since 2006 until today. These measures collectively reveal an official intent to control, criminalize, and marginalize non-Muslim religious practice in violation of internationally recognized standards of freedom of religion or belief. So the first point is the ordinance number 0603 of February 28, 2006. In this date, the Algerian government enacted the ordinance number 0603, which fixed the conditions and rules for the exercise of worship other than Muslim. Although presented as a regulatory framework, this ordinance has been used in practice as a tool of repression. This is what happened today, allowing authorities to deny registration to evangelical churches or Protestant churches, criminalize improved religious gatherings, prosecute pastors like myself and other pastors and believers for peaceful worship, shut down places of worship on vague administrative grounds. This ordinance forms the legal foundation for the closure of churches and the prosecution of Christian leaders across Algeria. The second point is the secret government directive to close churches in December 14, 2017. And this is a good point. So on December 14, 2017, the Algerian government issued a confidential directive ordering the closure of all the Protestant churches. The stated justification was to fight or to combat what authorities described as the phenomenon of evangelism in the nation of Islam, because of the second article of the Constitution, which says that Islam is the religion of the state. This directive was circulated internally to security forces, particularly police units operating in Kabylia, under reference number 2112517MAAU2U. The decision was implemented without transparency, judicial oversight, or consultation with affected Christian communities. As a result of this confidential directive, dozens of churches were sealed or shut down, 46 churches. Congregations were dispersed. pastors and church leaders were summoned, interrogated, and prosecuted. Until this time, 52 sums are in the court in Algiers. The third point, criminal prosecution of pastors and Christian leaders. Algerian Christian pastors and leaders have been charged under Article 246 of the Algerian Penal Code, which means that it's between 1 and 18 months jail. And the second article, which is more harder than the first, is Article 87 bis, which is an article originally designed for terrorism related for offenses. But now this article is, the government is using this article against Christians. The fourth point is official statement denying religious pluralism, like in May 6, 2021. In this date, Abdullah Ghulamullah, President of the High Islamic Council and former Minister of Religious Affairs, and I have met 3 times this president, publicly declared that an Algerian can only be a Muslim. This is what he said. An Algerian can only be Muslim. This statement reported by the French newspaper Le Monde reflects an official ideological position that denies the legitimacy of Algerian Christians' identity and contradicts Algeria's constitutional and international commitments to religious freedom. Such rhetoric reinforces discrimination and legitimizes repressive policies against religious minorities. The last one is government organized conference on freedom of worship, December 3, 2024. On December 3, 2024, the Algerian government organized a conference titled Freedom of Worship is Guaranteed Within the Framework of Respect of the Law. The conference included high-profile international and religious figures, notably John Paul Vesco, he was Archbishop of Algiers, the Catholic Church there, and Elizabeth Moore Oben, United States Ambassador to Algeria. They were in this conference. However, Algerian Christians themselves, the primary group affected by church closures, persecution, and repression, were not invited by their own government.
Pastor, are you about wrapping up here? We need to wrap up. Are you almost done? Okay, thank you.
So this deliberate exclusion and the course of government refusal to recognize Algerian Christians as legitimate in discussion concerning religious freedom and illustrate their systematic marginalization. Thank you for listening, and God bless you.
Well, thank you for sharing and laying out so clearly what's going on in Algeria and the attack on pastors and churches and the laws that they're using. You did a wonderful job. We appreciate you being here and sharing that, and we are honored to have 3 more members of Congress, 1 in the House and 2 senators, join us today. We appreciate your leadership so much. We've had a wonderful hearing, just so you know. We have many courageous Christians from around the world who have just completed their testimony. We have a representative from Eritrea. We have Vietnam, China, Nigeria, Algeria. We just heard from Pakistan and Nicaragua. And we had a reading from a Burmese pastor who presented his testimony anonymously due to the danger to he and his family. And so we've heard some amazing and heart-wrenching stories, and we appreciate your leadership here on Capitol Hill to raise these issues. I want to invite the chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, Jim Risch, to come and to share your thoughts about this very, very important topic. So thank you, Chairman Risch.
Well, thank you, Madam Chairman, and thank you for having me here today to say a few things. And I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge my colleague and good friend, Senator Budd, who's a real leader on this issue in the United States Senate, and I'm proud to work with him on this really important issue. And thank you for convening this hearing. Religious persecution around the globe is a grave issue, and the persecution of Christians is particularly important to many of us here today. Religious freedom is a cornerstone of the founding of the United States of America, and the right to freedom of belief reinforces all other fundamental freedom we enjoy as Americans. That's why when we see persecution against our brothers and sisters of faith at home or abroad, we need to speak out. Our rights come from God, but it is the responsibility of our government to protect them. But around the world, we see governments clearly failing that duty. For instance, in China, the Communist Party wants all religious under its control. I've had personal experience with this. In my state, which is adjacent to Utah, we have a large number of members of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in our population, as does Utah, as does Arizona. They, as you know, are missionaries and work all around the world. The Chinese government seized funds that they had in the country because in China, you are required to have a license to practice your religion. So foreign to us here in America. But in any event, because they license them, they can do whatever they want. After significant negotiations and applying the appropriate pressure, the Chinese did cut loose of the money that the church was using to build a temple there. But that kind of shows you what we face as we try to practice our religion around the world. China continues to carry out policies of genocide and cultural erasure against Muslim Uyghurs and Tibetan Buddhists, destroys crosses and churches, and replaces images of Jesus with Xi Jinping. Just last week, Chinese authorities ramped up their recent attacks on Christian house of worship in China, detaining more believers of the Early Rain Covenant Church simply for daring to practice their inalienable right to freedom of religion. This is in addition to the detention of even more Christians late last year. For many across Africa, faith is met with fear and repression. Christian leaders are being attacked and worshipers are persecuted for their faith. Acts of terrorism and failure of governments to protect vulnerable communities of faith and open hostility toward worshipers by state and non-state actors on the continent must come to an end. In the Middle East, Christians face persecution, oppression, and restrictive laws. Populations of Christians in Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, and Iran, and elsewhere have plummeted over the last few decades because of these repressive policies. Non-state actors like ISIS continue their campaign of terror, targeting Christians and, as we know, others. Lastly, I know we are focused on the important subject of persecution of Christians, but we would be remiss to not acknowledge our friends of Jewish faith are suffering as well. As anti-Semitism rises around the globe, we must recommit as people of faith to religious freedom for all. As many of our guests know all too well, there are places around the world where being a Christian or a person of faith is a death sentence or a cause for harm. That's why I introduced a resolution with many of my Senate colleagues, including Senator Budd, expressing the need for America's continued leadership on matters of religious freedom. In my work as chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, I am committed to standing up for those who are oppressed simply for having the courage to live out their faith in God and the God-given rights. I'm very grateful for the work of this commission and look forward to working with you in the future. Thanks again so much for having me here, and I now turn it over to Senator Budd, and you're in good hands, Senator. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. We appreciate your words, appreciate your leadership, and thank you very much, Senator Budd, for getting us this room, but most importantly, for your heart for people of faith and your witness and your leadership. So thank you for being here today.
Well, Chair, thank you so much for having me. Glad to help provide with the room. Chairman Risch, there's a million things. If you turn on any news channel right now, there's 100 other things to be focused on internationally. And yet, the issue which is important to all of us in this room of religious freedom, not just for the Christian faith, my faith, but for others as well, the freedom to worship as they choose. It could be swept to the back burner, but because of Chairman Risch's leadership, he has done a phenomenal job keeping it front and center, as have you and the commission. You were doing this when I called you Congresswoman and friend, and now I call you friend and chairwoman, so thank you so much. And thanks for the witnesses today. The other commissioners, thanks for all that you do. It's good to see you again. Thanks for visiting my office. And like Chairman Risch has, keeping this front and center in front of the American people, in front of legislators. And what we say in the Senate and in the U.S. House gets heard around the world. Sometimes we can be dismissive of the power of the spoken word here in America, but it is very important. So I just want to mention a few things. You know, religious freedom has been a priority for my time in the House and now here in the Senate as well. But specifically, as we consider Nigeria and what President Trump did on Christmas Day to push back ISIS and to let them know that he's very serious about religious freedom. So we're grateful for their leadership. But before Nigeria was even considered a country of particular concern, our office and my colleagues were raising this in front of Secretary Rubio, in front of President Trump. And soon after that, in last October, President Trump did designate it a country of particular concern, which set the stage for pushing back against ISIS. With China, it gets really personal. When Grace, you have visited our office, we've talked about your family, and they're in our prayers, and we're grateful for your family's courage and bravery. But they've essentially codified religious persecution into law. I heard this mentioned by the chairman prior to me, but one of the pieces of legislation that I introduced was called Combating the Persecution of Religious Groups in China Act. Sometimes legislation doesn't match what it's actually about. That one does. So we want to hold China's authoritarian regime responsible for decades and decades of persecution. And I want to personally thank Mark Alford, who your colleague from the House, who is helping me in being the co-lead over there. That bill imposes sanctions on CCP officials, and it strengthens our efforts to combat ongoing religious persecution. You know, our hearts were broken a little over 2 years ago when I had just come into the Senate, and we saw what happened with southern Israel. We saw the invasion of Hamas, and it became even more personal when we realized that a North Carolinian was being held hostage. He was a dual citizen of the U.S., but also of Israel. His wife, Aviva, was held hostage. They were taken from their cars. And for 50 days, she was held hostage and then released before Thanksgiving of 2023. And it took over a year for Keith Siegel to be released. We're grateful to God for their release and that they're able to join family. But we continue to remember them, and we were able to focus to make sure that those who did not survive, that their bodies were respected and returned home. So I want to thank Secretary Rubio and the fact that we also led the reauthorization for this bill for USCIRF. I think that's tremendously important. But I just want to close with this. This ambassador at large for international religious freedom is a very, very important role. So please join me in helping the administration focus and remember how important this is, and that we find the right individual, and that we have somebody with the ambassador level credentials and credibility to speak with our allies and other nations that may not be our allies around the world. And I think we need somebody at the ambassador level to be able to do that. So join me in continuing to push for that and champion this cause. Thank you again. All of you have been personally affected by this in one way or the other. So let's continue to pray for this issue and push for it with all of our strength. Thank you so much. God bless.
Yes. Thank you, Senator. Really, really appreciate all those remarks and your leadership. And now we have Congressman Riley Moore, who certainly has been at the forefront of these issues and has been helping develop strategy for what our country can do to help in Nigeria and other countries. And thank you for all that you're doing, for putting this front and center of your life and your service here. And thank you for being here today to share your thoughts on this topic.
Thank you. And it's certainly an honor to be here today, and really appreciate y'all letting me have a couple minutes here. But it's wonderful to see so many people in this room that actually care about these issues. And thank you all so much for your bravery and your testimony here today. And thank you to the U.S. Commission here on International Religious Freedom and everything that you all do. It's so important. And I'd especially like to thank Vicki Hartzell. Hartzler. Unfortunately, you're not in Congress anymore. You're in a better place. Congress is a little crazy right now. Just joking. But I know that what I'm going to discuss here today, the persecution of Christians in Nigeria is really close to your heart. I thank you for your strong advocacy on that issue. So I think as many of us know, Nigeria is the most dangerous country in the world to be a Christian. It's the most dangerous place in the world to profess your faith in our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. And since 2009, there's been between 50,000 on the low end to 100,000 Christians have been killed. Tens of thousands of churches have been burned. Millions of Christians have been displaced. In Benue State alone, there are 600,000 Christians living in IDP camps. And I know that personally because I went there last month. I was in Benue State in Nigeria and talked to a number of the IDPs when I was there. And I will tell you, it is one of the most tragic scenes I've ever seen, the positions that they're having to survive in. But it was certainly also heartwarming in the same way as that the suffering that they're going through, as we know, many times leads to salvation. I think it's actually salvation not so much for them, for us. I think it's salvation for us and our opportunity to step up and actually do something about these issues. And this is why I'd been asking Secretary Marco Rubio, and I'd sent him a letter in October urging him and the administration to redesignate, and I want to put an emphasis on that, redesignate Nigeria a country of particular concern. In Trump's first term, they were designated. In Biden's term there, it was taken off. And so that redesignation of Nigeria happened on October 31st. And I think as many of us saw, he put out his Truth Social post about that, and many of us were elated to see that. And then some of us had to start getting to work, myself specifically, since the president named me specifically to go and do a congressional investigation on this, along with my chairman of the House Appropriations Committee, Tom Cole. And so I got to work. And with Tom Cole, Chairman Mario Diaz-Balart of the State Foreign Operations Subcommittee, previously called that, now it's NSRP. But we went to work and started working on a report, and then also reached out to our colleague, I know he's very well known in a room like this, Chris Smith at the House Foreign Affairs Committee, to investigate the persecution of Christians and report back to President Trump. And we did a lot of things. Vicki helped us out here on this as well. We had a roundtable and in the House building there. And Vicki testified at a congressional hearing to receive expert testimony. I also met with a high-level delegation from the Nigerian government after that designation. They came and met with myself, some of the senators here, White House, Department of War, Department of State as well. And I also wanted to see the situation firsthand, as I just mentioned, and that's why we put together this congressional delegation with Chairman Mario Diaz-Balart, myself, and others from the House Appropriations Committee to go to Nigeria. And there we saw the unfortunate, brutal reality for ourselves of what was going on. And behind every statistic is a suffering human being, made in the image and likeness of God. And I met with one woman who was forced to watch radical Muslim Fulani militants murder her husband and her 5 children right in front of her. And she escaped with her life. And she was pregnant at the time and has now since given birth to a child in an IDP camp, which is routinely, these IDP camps are routinely attacked on their own. And to those who say this is about land issue or climate change or anything like that, what in the world does an IDP camp have to do with that? It doesn't. It doesn't. It's obviously religiously motivated. Another woman I met with, she had watched her 2 children and her husband murdered and her unborn child. and she's living in an IDP camp as well. And these types of stories are the reasons, I mean, myself and my family, every day, every evening, we pray for the persecution of these Christians in Nigeria. It's just so heartbreaking. But the good news, however, is that we are seeing some positive progress in this. The Nigerian government has taken positive steps. I will give them this, that they have taken positive steps to demonstrate a willingness to work in coordination and cooperation with the United States government to address the insecurity challenges that Christians face in the country writ large. And let me give you two examples of that. One that best illustrates it is Sunday Jackson. So Sunday Jackson was an individual who was on death row for nearly 11 years, who I had been calling for his release. Then upon meeting with the Nigerian government, I said, listen, this will be a confidence building measure for us if you want to establish a relationship in between us to help address your insecurity issues that you have in your country. And the Nigerians actually listened. And Sunday was pardoned right before Christmas. He had a child he'd never even met and got to spend his first Christmas with that child. And he's released and he's free now. He's certainly not necessarily safe, but I do want to thank the Nigerian government for doing the right thing in terms of listening to our concerns. And I will say that that does make us feel better about this cooperation and coordination that we're going to move forward with the Nigerian government and the hashing out of the strategic security framework in between our two countries to address this. And then the second one was the bombing that we saw, 12 Tomahawk cruise missiles on Christmas Day. It's important to point out that this was not done unilaterally. This was done with the Nigerian government. And that in itself was another confidence building measure, I think, for me and my colleagues who continue to talk with them routinely about these issues. But more, however, must be done. This isn't enough, but it's a good first couple of steps that we've seen here. And my colleagues and I will soon, this month, we're going to brief the White House on our investigation's findings and provide the president with a series of options to help protect our brothers and sisters in Christ. I'm grateful for President Trump's steadfast leadership on this issue. And I look forward to continue to work with him to defend the persecuted. And I'll close with this thought. And this is just the way I feel about these issues. Look, the United States is a Christian nation. It is. The United States is a Christian nation that's founded on Christian principles. We have a unique duty to defend Christians wherever they are being persecuted, and I will never stop fighting for our persecuted brothers and sisters in Christ. And it goes for everybody, for that matter. Everybody. We're founded, though, in that religious faith. So I want to thank each and every one of you for everything that you're doing. God bless you all, and God bless all the great work you're doing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Congressman. Your leadership is just so encouraging, and we appreciate you working with the White House and look forward to continued steps that are going to be taken to help the persecuted. So thank you for working with us and your leadership here.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Well, hasn't this been a wonderful, heart-wrenching, bittersweet, but a morning? And as we have heard so many amazing stories, and we have given voice to the voiceless. And now I'd like to turn to some questions. I know we're running a little bit late, but it's really, really important, I think. I want to give my fellow commissioners time to ask our witnesses some questions here. So first I'm going to turn to our Vice Chairman, Asif Mahmood, for any questions he may have.
First of all, I want to really acknowledge, I want to thank and really admire the staff of USCIRF for doing such a wonderful work and such a successful hearing and so much participation from every side. I want to be brief because I want to give other people time. My question is going to be directed to Anika Anthony. The reason I'm directing this question because I originally come from Pakistan, and I'm going to particularly ask you about the blasphemy laws, their relation to international human rights standards, their effect on. We know that Christian population in Pakistan and other minority population is shrinking and significantly shrunken over the last 20 years. And we are not making progress, according to my knowledge, in these things. What do you think we can do more? Our United States government can do more, our USCIRF can do more, and other organizations can do more to, number one, keep Christians and other minorities safe, have their right to worship the way they believe in, and save them from these horrible blasphemy laws, which actually go all the way up to death sentences, as you mentioned in just testimony, and also find a way for people who are arrested not spending time, not months, years, actually sometimes decades without any hearing. And we want to make this a priority this year to make some progress in that part because Pakistan is an allied country for the United States, and we want to make sure Christians and every other minority is safe.
Thank you so much, Mr. Asif, for your questions and your concerns. First of all, I would like to say that regarding the blasphemy laws, as you asked that what can be done, the thing that you can do very much from here, from your seat, from your chair, and from your platform, you can ask the government to repeal the laws, repeal the blasphemy laws, because it's very much it's important to understand that blasphemy laws are the laws that are created just to persecute people, right? You don't have to produce the witnesses. You don't have to produce anything. You just have to accuse somebody of a blasphemy. So these laws can be repealed. It's just the pressure of Islamic organizations and Islamic, the fundamental organizations that this cannot be done until now. So if an international pressure is created on the government of Pakistan to repeal the laws or at least to amend the laws, it will change a lot of things. Amendment as in the credibility, and if the burden of proof lies on the party, and if something is not proved, and then they will be punished otherwise, then it will create a lot of progress, and the blasphemy laws will be decreased because there is no accountability. If a person is accused of blasphemy and he spends 10 years in the jail and then afterwards he's released, who is accountable for 10 years? There are many cases, like in the case of Ramsha, an 11 years old girl in Islamabad. The Imam Masjid, he burnt the Holy Quran himself, and he accused her of doing that. Later on, it was proved, and he gave an interview to a newspaper, and that was recorded, that he did that himself, but there was no accountability. So, that's what I mean, that if a person who is accusing is get accountable for his actions, then I think it will change a lot of things.
Thank you. Do you have any other questions you'd like to ask right now, Vice Chair?
I think I will pass on to other commissioners because they haven't had much chance.
Yes, thank you. Okay, we'll turn to Commissioner Maureen Ferguson.
I'd just like to reiterate again our thanks. As Congressman Moore said, behind every statistic is a human being. And, in Washington, we really tend to focus on the statistics and the policy research and all the legal jargon of CPC designation and SWL and EPC. But all of our work is fueled on your stories and your personal testimony. So it was just so moving to hear from all of you today. And to move into my question, one of the things that really struck me in listening to you, and that I would love to hear a little bit more about, is the impact of religious persecution on children. We heard from you, Dr. Dolly, about how women and girls bear the brunt. Ms. Anthony, you spoke about the forced conversion and marriages of girls in Pakistan. Mr. Hadak, you spoke about the stateless children in Cambodia, I think, and your work with children. We know in China, the re-education of the Tibetan Buddhist children, and they're forced into the boarding schools. And so I would like to hear a little bit more stories of how children, and maybe girls in particular, are affected. And I've read some other interviews that you've done, Dr. Dolly, and I know you've documented so many cases of the girls who are abducted and forced into, marriage with the Boko Haram fighters. And of course, that sounds bad enough, but it's really a euphemism for it's forced sexual slavery and domestic slavery. And many of these girls are forced into it for a lifetime. So could you share with us, maybe we'll start with you, Dr. Dolly, and then if any of the others want to add to that, but can you share in particular some of the stories of how these girls are affected and what daily life is like for them in those situations?
Right now, we have a girl whom they went into her compound. She was not there. They killed the father, who is a PhD lecturing, the mother, the grandmother, and more than 16 people, and she was left alone. So my team went and they picked her, and she's in our safe space. And several of them, and she's not malnourished, but some of the children, they were left alone, no family member, some with family members, but then the woman will not have anything to cook. Some is even naked. We have to go to some dangerous places if we hear to give clothes, second-hand clothes to some to wear before they will go out. If not, completely naked. They strip them after watching them to kill their parents and then the husband. So they left them alone. So few among, they will kill the father, kill the children, and the leftover and their mother, they will come nothing. And the Chibok girls, particular, those whom a lot of billions of dollars was spent on them all over the world in order to release them. Up to now, some of them are not released, but few of them that are released, some, they were called by the government of Borno to come. And so when they went to Maiduguri, they attached them with their perpetrators, the husband in the camp, the Boko Haram husband who raped them, and they promised them something. So they are there in the camp with their husband and the husband, first husband. The parents of the Chibok girls, they talked to me. They said they were not called, it is not their own, and the girls, like they are radicalized, they said they are no more interested in their parents because they are now Muslims because of the brainstorming and the things that they give. We try to go, but it is very, very difficult. And more than 10 million children are out of school in Nigeria because their schools were destroyed, homes were destroyed, parents were killed. Who will take them to school? And their future. So hunger, suffering, and all this. And these women, they have nothing. And we that help them, we don't have much. We are just like sprinkling water in a sea of trouble.
Thank you so much. And do any of the other panelists want to comment on the impact of children? Ms. Molina, I mean, I'm thinking of the children of Nicaragua. Just one example I know, Mother Teresa's nuns, the Missionaries of Charities, were kicked out, exiled, and they used to run a home for girls on the streets. So what's happened to those girls? Who's taking care of them now that the religious sisters have been kicked out? I don't know if anybody else wants to comment on the impact of religious persecution on children. If Grace, while you're translating, Grace, would you like to just add something? Well,
Yes, thank you so much. First of all, I just wanted to say that in China, especially for Christians and many other of the 5 recognized religions, anyone under the age of 18 is not allowed to attend any of the services. So no one under the age of 18, all children, are technically not allowed to attend church, attend mosque, attend like a temple or any of these type of religious worship. And like you've mentioned with the Tibetan children, the Uyghur children, so many of these ethnic minority children are ripped away from their families and sent away where their parents are maybe seen once a month or even less in some cases. And even more insidious than that is that many of these schools, even for the majority, like Han majority, they are indoctrinated and they are taught to think that religion is backwards or evil or whatever, and these kids are sent back almost as like an agent of a spy, like where they are forced to spy on your parents. Like, are they going to churches? Are they like having books or documents and things that they are in their houses, and you like a congressman had mentioned that they codified religious persecution in their laws. In some ways, they are sanitizing a lot of these horrendous actions where they're tearing apart families, and we're not able to see that because it's so hidden. But these are what are some of the actions that are happening in China.
thank you. Ms. Molina, did you want to add something to that?
Yes, in Nicaragua, Mother Teresa nuns were expelled and kicked out of Nicaragua. The children that they were being protected are incomplete. They're not being protected at this time, and the regime is now in charge of the public schools where these girls are being sent. The Nicaraguan schools, the public schools, the children are indoctrinated to end the generational continuation of Christianism. Nicaraguan government is an atheist and communist state, so they want to end the Christianity faith that these children had with the mothers, nuns from St. Teresa.
Thank you so much. Did you want to add something? I want to make sure I leave time for the other commissioners.
Yes, I will add very quickly about the children. I was talking about the girls who are converted forcefully. They are of very tender age, like
Or
10
what,
years.
did you say?
They are of very tender age, like 10 years, 12 years, 13 years.
Wow.
And once they are abducted, they are converted to Islam, and then they are forced into marriage with the men of much older ages. Some of them survive, some of them don't. There are very few number, like 1% of girls who are lucky enough to come back to their families. Otherwise, our legal system, our court system, they do not encourage, they do not let the girls to come back to their families. One, because they got married, and the main reason is that they have converted to Islam. And they are kids, they don't know that what is the religion and what they are saying and what they are doing. They are just presumed that they are converted, and so they have to spend their whole life with the Muslim man in his household as a slave. So these little girls, they are of very tender age to give birth to the children. So some of them survive and some don't. So it's a very complicated system for the children, for the child girls in Pakistan, and even not even the girls, for the boys as well. When the boys are abducted, they sent to the training camps to do jihad in Kashmir and in other regions.
Gede, did you want to share something about Eritrea?
Yes, yeah, this is very interesting question for me. So my friend helped me with the translation, so I could express my thought clearly.
Yes. Can you speak up a little bit? Thank you.
Yeah, my first ኣብ ዝሓለፈ ዓመታት እቲ ቀንድን ዓበይቲ ጥራይ ደይኮነ ንንኣሽቱ ክርስቲያናት ናይሆም ሰኻኽር እቲ ዝኸፍአ ህይወት ምዃኑ እየ ክገልጽ ዝደሊ
when in the past several years in Eritrea, it was not only difficult for adults, but it was also extremely difficult for minors.
ምክንያቱ ኣብዚ ሕጂ እዋን ትሕቲ ዕድመ ቆልዑት ኣብ ቤት ማእሰርቲ ከም ዘለዉ ይፈልጥ እየ
At this moment, I am aware that there are minors who are incarcerated along with their parents.
ብተወሳኺ ኣብ ቤት ማእሰርቲ ዝኣተው ስድራ ቤቶም ንነዊሕ ዓመታት ልዕሊ 13 ዓመታት ሓንቲ ኣደ ምስ ደቃ ዘይተራኸበት እውን ኣላ
I know also one mother who has been in prison for 13 years and she has not seen her younger ones, her children, for that many years.
እሱ ከይኣክል እቶም ደቃም እውን ኣብ ቤት ትምህርቲ ክመሃሩ እውን ኣይፍቀደሎምኒ ምክንያቱ ናይ ህዋም ሰኻኽር ስለ ዝኾኑ ካብ ቤት ትምህርቲ ብዙሓት ቆልዑት እዮም ኣብዚ ሕጂ እዋን ዝስገጉ ደለዉ
And to add to that as well, kids were not who had incarcerated parents or in prison. Their kids are not allowed to go to a regular school as a result.
ስለዚ ናይ ህዋም ሰኻኽር ኣብ ኤርትራ ደለዉ ነቶም ዓበይቲ ጥራይ ደይኮኑ ዋላ እውን እቶም ትሕቲ ዕድመ ቆልዑት እውን ካብ ግዜ ናብ ግዜ ንዕኦም እውን ኣሸጋሪ ኩነታት እንዳኾነ ይኸይድ ከም ዘሎ በዘጋጣሚ ክነግረኩም ፈቱ
So in this opportunity, I would like to express that even minors have been affected by the challenges against Jehovah's Witnesses in Eritrea, and it has been difficult for them in the past several years.
Very good. Thank you for sharing that. And now I'll turn to Commissioner Mohammed El Sanusi for any questions he may have.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you, Chair Hassler, and thank you to you, our witnesses. We're really grateful for your witness. Also want to thank you for your bravery as well as courage and testimony. So thank you so much. A couple of questions I have for you, Dr. Dali. Nigeria is in the news, and Nigeria is an important country in Africa. And that's why addressing the situation in Nigeria is really very important because it's reflect in the entire Africa. Just knowing Nigeria. In your testimony, you basically highlighted some of the important things, like you called for a peaceful methods to resolve this issue. I want you to explain more. What do you mean by peaceful methods to resolve issues in Nigeria? You also mentioned the role of civil society as well and the use of diplomatic means to kind of for the equal rights for the Christian communities as well. So my direct question to you, and you provided us with a couple of recommendations, but my question to you, what roles of the other religious communities in Nigeria, like the Muslim communities, they are speaking out about the persecution of the Christian communities, people like the Sultan of Sokoto, Muhammad Saad Abu Bakr, for instance, is speaking out. The people from the northeast, Puchi and others, are they speaking out against what's going on for the in regard to the persecution of the Christian communities?
The peaceful way that I refer to is not like continue bombing, because bombing scared the community. You cannot bomb these terrorists. Maybe if it is Zambeza, there are a lot of people that are not in Zambeza, and in that forest that the US bombed, there are some communities there that a lot of people are affected and they are scared, and they are even they took some of the pieces, selling it for food, because they are really devastated by the violence, and the bomb scared them to death. A lot of them are not in their right senses after that bomb. So I don't want the one that we will do dialogue and calling them, but the peaceful way that I want is there are some sympathizers, as you name, and several people know. There are some sponsors. There are some that are really aiding those terrorists and encouraging them to continue. So if US will help to Nigerian government to fish out those things and to those who are perpetrators, then peace will reign. My husband, when he was a UN president, he went to Jonathan during that time to talk on what is happening, because our church is in the Northeast, and all our churches, more than 1,000 and 8,000 people were killed and all this, because we were among them. So he spoke, and Jonathan said, my government is infiltrated with all these people. If you talk of Boko Haram, maybe one of the supporters are there in the government. So if US will, and you have a lot of intelligence, you are the best among the world, you can face them out, and Nigeria will be at peace.
Thank you so much. This is really very important point you made. Just moving quickly, I understand the time as well here, but I want to turn to you, Grace, here, and the question to you, and really just you highlighted, and your father is in prison in China. My question to you: have you thought about leveraging our alliances? United States, we do have a lot of alliances in the world that they have a strong relationship with China. So why not leveraging our alliances so that we can help to release prisoners of conscience like your father?
Thank you so much. That is a very, very big question, and I feel like the U.S. government, and like you said, like Dr. Dali said, there are so many extremely smart people in this government who also have such a heart for the persecuted people in the world, and I'm sure that they are also working with all the toolkits that they have to to help the release of prisoners. I agree with you completely that we should be asking the international community, including our allies and including those in Europe, those in the Indo-Pacific, etc., to also speak out and to work with us to ask for the release of the prisoners in China. And as you know, that China is actually a very difficult country for a lot of these places because of their economic might. And so it has been a difficult situation where so many countries are afraid to speak out and afraid to take a stance. And even if they speak out, it ends up being just kind of just mere like talks and not anything with teeth or any other action. So it is something that as a daughter, it's been really hard to see, and I hope that the international community will stand up for these people and for my family. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now we turn to Commissioner Rachel Lasser for any questions you may have.
Thank you. Is this working? Yes. Thank you so much for sharing your stories. I'm so sorry for what's happened to you and your fathers and your sons and family and friends, and I appreciate the work that you've all put into this and the way you've made, made lemonade from lemons. I have two questions. One is similar to Mohammed's, but I wanted to know why it's important for, well, firstly, I should say that I'm Jewish, and I'm Jewish. I fight every day for religious freedom in this country, and now I have the honor of doing it overseas. And I wanted to know why you all feel it's important for non-Christians to be fighting for the rights of Christians, and relatedly, whether you feel it's equally important for Christians to be fighting for the freedom of religious minorities and even non-believers, and why that is. So that's my first question. I have just one more after that. Yeah, go ahead.
It's good for non-Christian to be fighting. In my report, I said the Muslims suffered. And among those women whom we serve and people, there are a lot of Muslims whom the Boko Haram surrounded their churches, their mosques, and saying that we want to do hubuwa or what did they call, and they deceived them. When they went into the church, in the mosques, they surrounded the mosques and killed everyone in the mosques. A woman, a widow, her 7 children were killed, including, and then her husband. And there are a lot of Muslims like that really suffered because those extremist ideology, they did not accept. And the traditional worshippers too. So it's good to fight for the right of all because we want everyone to live in peace. 75% of my family are Muslims. And we do wedding together. They go to church when my children are wedding, and I go to their places. When Imam is going to wed, I go and attend. So we mingle together, living in peace. So we want peaceful world.
Does anyone else want to comment? Yep, so I see, yep, Anikwa.
Yeah, thank you. It is a very important question that why should everyone fight for the justice and fight for religious freedom? But the thing is, a persecution, when somebody is persecuted, it is for, the pain is the same. It is not like that pain is more for Christians and less for the Muslims or less for Hindus. For example, in Pakistan, when we talk about the forced conversions and forced marriages, it is not only for the Christians, it is for the Hindus as well. The Hindu girls are also abducted, they are also converted forcefully, and they are also forced into marriages. So that doesn't mean that only the Christians feel more pain and the Hindu parents don't feel any pain. So pain is equal for everyone. So I think that, in my opinion, all kind of persecution should be stopped, and every religion should live in peace.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, does anyone else? Did you want to say something, Evie?
Yeah, I really like your question. Yeah, I never heard anybody ask about Christian, non-believer, like advocate for other people. So, I mean, like the pain is everybody get like pain, even the non-Christian and non-Christian. But human rights is equal for all. In my experience, example, our foundation is a Christian. But it's not just we stop on that. When we rescue the human trafficking from Cambodia, go back to Vietnam, they are non-Christian. But that is how we show the love. I mean, like I really appreciate U.S. government that you put effort to advocate for Christian. I don't know, like all of you Christian or not, but you have a heart. So I mean, like even a non-Christian, we still continue to advocate for all the people that in suffering right now. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, Martha.
Because it is a human right, and it is a right of the protection allows the advance of the rest of the rights. Today, they take your religious liberty. Tomorrow, they take any other.
Thank you.
I totally agree with that. And just to kind of talk about China, first of all, Judaism is not even one of the 5 recognized religions in China. So it is not even protected and it's not even allowed, again, by the Chinese law. For Judaism to practice Judaism. In China, it's also the case that the persecution of faith is mostly because the CCP wants to basically be God and play the sole power. And so anyone who says, like people of the books, we say that God is above earthly powers. We're not against earthly powers, but we put God where he is and we allow the kings to be where they are. And that's all that we're asking for. And that point in itself is already the reason why we are persecuted. And just like what many of our panelists said, when this is such an integral part of what it means to be a person and what we so intimately what we believe in is what we're being persecuted for, then all other rights are also not protected.
You know, in America, our founders were really wise, and it's interesting that you all are here to testify to the persecution of Christians around the world, which is a very serious problem. And our founders saw that in America, there were many persecuted Christians, even in our colonies, who were the wrong kind of Christian. And so they set up our country to have complete freedom no matter what you believe. You can change your belief, you can not believe, you can, right, for all of us, because they wanted to keep the peace, you know, and they saw the violence. And I'm just so sorry. I guess my last question, Grace, was for you, and maybe that'll, then I'll turn it back to you, Chair Hartzler. Do you see that America's commitment to defending religious freedom around the world gives us a competitive advantage over countries like China that don't defend religious freedom and, in fact, have antagonistic policies towards it?
Thank you so much for the question. And this is also a pretty big one. I will say, honestly, in terms of in being talking for in the Chinese context, the people who are most suffering are the Chinese people. And so the people who are most suffering because of the strict rules and the harsh totalitarian control that the Chinese government is trying to instill into its whole of government approach to all of these things is, again, it's people. So I think the US definitely has an extreme edge in that sense because the Chinese government fears its people most and foremost. Like the fact that a pastor with 1,000 members is put in prison and is feared, that's bizarre in America. We have pastors with 10,000, a million congregation, and that's just a norm. And that's and again, like I think that in itself is a big edge. The fact that we are able to stand on the right side of history and say we are defending people to just have the right to their most natural human right, I think that puts us again in such a better place to be leading the world and to be leading. Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner, and thank you to each one of you. I guess I have a quick, maybe, I don't know, follow-up question, but very important. We make recommendations to members of Congress, to the President on what we can do through our foreign policy to help advance these religious freedom. And so I'd like to go down and have each one of you give one, if you want to give more, fine, but one specific recommendation of how our government could help your country expand religious freedom. What would that be? Would it be sanctioning them, military action? I don't think that's what it, but anyway, sanctioning individuals, withholding foreign aid, speaking up for them, speeches, I don't know. You know, we're looking for tangible things that we can take to Congress and say, hey, do this to help the Christians in Vietnam or the Christians, you know, whatever. So I know you haven't had time much to think of it, but Nagaya, I'll start with you. What specifically could the United States do to help the situation there in Eritrea?
እቲ ኩነታት ኣብ ኤርትራ ካብ ግዜ ናብ ግዜ እናኸፍአ እናቐፀለ ይኸይድ ስለ ዘሎ ብፍላይ ኣብ ልዕሊ ናይ ሃምሳኻኽር ክርስቲያናት ናይ ሃምሳኻኽር ዘሎ ሽግራት
As we know, the conditions in Eritrea are going from bad to worse from time to time, over time, especially with regards to Jehovah's Witnesses.
ብፍላይ ኣብ ዝሓለፈ ዓመት ጥራይ ብዙሓት ኣብ ቤት ማእሰር ተኣትዮም ኣለዉ
especially only in the last few years alone, a lot of witnesses have been imprisoned.
ስለዚ ምናልባሽ ግዜ እንዳቐፀለ ኸይድ ከሎ ክንደዮም ብሕጂ ኸ ከኣትዉ ኣብ ናይ ሃምሳኻኽር ትፍለጥ ነገር የለን
So I wonder, given the time, more and more witnesses, Jehovah's Witnesses, might continue to be imprisoned. So we don't know about that.
So please help secure the release of our friends who are suffering in prison. So this is my message to all of you.
Could you repeat that, please, for him?
ትናተይ መልእኽቲ ካብ ግዜ ናብ ግዜ ብዙሓት ኣብ ቤት ማእሰርቲ ይኣትዉ ስለ ዘለዉ ንዕኦም ንምፍታሕ ነቶም ወፂኦም ደለዉ ስድራ ቤታም እውን ስራሕ ዝረኽብሉ መሰል ዝረኽብሉ ኣምልኾ ነፃነት ዝረኽብሉ ባይታ ክፍጠር በዚ ኣጋጣሚ እዚ ክሓትት ይደሊ
So I respectfully ask the Commission to please help facilitate the release of these prisoners who are currently in prison, and also for better conditions so that they could regain a freedom of worship.
Great, thank you so much. Ivik?
Thank you very much. I really want U.S. government really put pressure on Vietnam so they can change, because they also member of the international, but they're not doing anything what they agree with the U.S. government, with the UN as well. So I hope that U.S. government can put pressure on them so they can release all the pastors, prisoner of conscience, and they respect indigenous rights. And also, not just only persecuted, they not only just persecute Christian domestic, but they also transnational repression example, like the people already exiled or applying refugee in Thailand to cooperate with Thai government to extradite them back to Vietnam. So we can see that they not just only working on the domestic, but they also work international repression.
Okay.
So thank you very much.
Thank you. Grace.
I just want to say, as a daughter, I feel like I mostly ask for the release for my family, my father, those church members. We've seen the Trump administration do things that people have said are impossible, like the release of the prisoners in Gaza, and I hope that his administration can continue the legacy and to free more prisoners from all across the world, but especially in China, especially my father.
Yes, thank you. Dr. Dolly, I think you shared some ideas, but anything you want to emphasize what we can do to help?
Yes, my emphasis is for the U.S. government to tax the people that are in the high level, like the president, all this, so that they will love the people, provide security for them, and then bring something that will bring peace in Nigeria. If not, what they are doing, embezzlement, taking money for themselves, providing security for themselves, and then neglect the masses, is not good. God is going to ask them, let them love the people. So if the U.S. government will help us to tax our leaders to love people, bring security, love them, I will feel very happy. Thank you for
bet.
inviting me. I'm privileged.
Yeah, thank you. Great words. Pastor Vincent.
Thank you so much. So for me, I have three things to ask. So the first is to cancel or dismiss all legal proceedings against pastors and leaders. There are around 52, where I am in. Second is completely asking to change the law or the ordinance 0306, which is like the same law in Pakistan about blasphemy. The third thing, which is reopen all the closed churches, the 46
I'm
churches.
sorry, could you repeat that?
Reopen the closed churches.
Oh, reopen the closed
Yeah,
churches. Got
yeah.
it. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so
Yes,
much.
Yes. Thank you, Anika.
Well, I have a couple of requests or my recommendations. I would first urge to use diplomatic channels, UN forums, bilateral visits to press Pakistan to repeal the blasphemy laws and adopt and enforce a uniform minimum age for the marriage for all girls in line with the international standards. Secondly, I would recommend that U.S.-Thai trade and cooperation tools to concrete benchmarks, a moratorium or executions for blasphemy, progress towards repeal, effective protection for minorities, and enforcement for minimum age of marriage. And lastly, make human rights conditionally central to UN justice and security sector cooperation with Pakistan, with mandatory training for the judiciary and police personnel on FoRB, women and rights, children rights, and fair trial guarantees in blasphemy and forced conversion cases. Thank you.
Very practical. Thank you. Marta?
Les ruego que vuelvan sus ojos hacia Nicaragua. Somos un país pequeño y eso permite al régimen el control absoluto. Los cristianos estamos con miedo como cuando los discípulos de Jesús estaban atemorizados después de su asesinato. No pueden hablar ni denunciar, solo soportar en silencio la represión. Nos urge su ayuda, de lo contrario el mal avanzará hasta Estados Unidos. y las medidas que hay que adoptar son más sanciones económicas a la dictadura, llevar a la justicia internacional al régimen de Daniel Ortega y Rosario Murillo y condenarlos por delitos de lesa humanidad. Ha quedado demostrado este año que sí se puede.
I pray you return your eyes to Nicaragua. We're a small country and a country where the regime has the absolute of power over the Christians. We're afraid, as when the disciples of Jesus were afraid after his killing. We cannot talk or report inside Nicaragua, only withstand in silence the repression. It is with urgency that we need to stop the criminals or they will continue to advance, which will eventually reach us in the United States. The measures that must be taken need to be more aggressive. Sanction the army, impose direct economic sanctions, bring Daniel Ortega and Rosario Murillo and their collaborators before international justice and prosecute them for crimes against humanity. This year has proven that it is possible.
Excellent. Thank you so much for not only sharing your stories, but also giving your expert advice to us on what we can advocate for to help, because we all have this singular goal here of stopping the persecution of people of faith. And thank you for your courageous leadership. I want to thank everyone here in the audience who cares about this issue for being here today, and that includes those online who are watching. We will have this hearing on our website, USCIRF.gov, and so we encourage you to push that out so that others may hear the messages that were heard today, and we can spread the message. But I want to thank the staff for their wonderful work here today, my fellow commissioners, members of Congress who are here also. And so today we will close the hearing. Thank you very much.